There is an island in the Gulf of Mexico. It appeared on maps for 400 years. Spanish maps, British maps, American maps, Mexican maps, hundreds of them, from dozens of independent cartographers across 4 centuries, all showing the same island at the same coordinates, in the same ocean, and then it was gone. Not submerged, not eroded, not gradually shrinking over decades, just gone. And when the Mexican government went looking for it in 2008, they found something that made the mystery significantly worse. They found nothing. Not the island, not the ruins of an island, not even a shallow reef where an island used to be. Just open water and silence and 22.5 billion barrels of oil that Mexico would never see. This is the story of Isla Bermeja, the island that existed for 400 years and then did not. The name comes from Spanish, Bermejo. It means reddish, named for the color of its landmass. A small reddish island sitting in the Gulf of Mexico, approximately 200 kilometers off the northwest coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. The first record of it appears in 1539. A Spanish cartographer named Alonso de Santa Cruz was compiling the most complete record of the world's islands ever attempted. He called it El Yucatan e Islas Adyacentes, and there, at coordinates 22 degrees 33 minutes north, 91 degrees 22 minutes west, was Bermeja, small, reddish, unremarkable, but there, and it stayed there. For 4 centuries, Spanish explorers marked it, British naval cartographers marked it, American mapmakers marked it. The Mexican government marked it on their own official national atlas in 1858. This was not one man's mistake, copied blindly across time. These were independent observers from different countries in different centuries, all arriving at the same coordinates and recording the same island. An island that was there, that everyone agreed was there, for 400 years. The moment it mattered, for most of those 4 centuries, Bermeja was strategically unimportant. A small uninhabited reddish island in the Gulf of Mexico. Nobody lived there. Nobody particularly wanted to. It was simply a geographic fact, a dot on a map. And then oil was discovered beneath the Gulf of Mexico. And suddenly, a small, uninhabited reddish island in exactly that location became one of the most valuable pieces of territory on the planet. Here is why. International law gives every country an exclusive economic zone, a maritime boundary extending 200 nautical miles from its territory in every direction. Within that zone, the country has the sole right to explore and extract natural resources, including oil. Bermeja Island, if it existed, would be the northernmost Mexican territory in the Gulf of Mexico, which means Mexico's exclusive economic zone would extend 200 nautical miles from Bermeja, pushing the boundary deep into the oil-rich waters of the Gulf, giving Mexico access to an estimated 22.5 billion barrels of oil. To put that number in perspective, that is more oil than the entire proven reserves of the United States. In 1997, the United States and Mexico began negotiating a treaty to divide the Hoyos de Dona, a stretch of international waters in the Gulf where Bermeja was supposed to be. And someone had to go and actually find the island. So Mexican fishermen traveled to the coordinates, 22 degrees 33 minutes north, 91 degrees 22 minutes west. They found open ocean, nothing else, just water. The search. At first, nobody panicked. Coordinates can be approximate. Old maps are not always precise. The island must be somewhere nearby, but it was not nearby. It was not anywhere. The Mexican government launched an official search expedition in 2008. Ships traveled to the region. Sonar equipment scanned the ocean floor. Satellite imagery was analyzed. Scientists from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, conducted multiple research expeditions to the area. They searched the coordinates. They searched around the coordinates. They searched the ocean floor beneath the coordinates, and what they found was the most disturbing possible result. Not the remnants of an island, not a shallow seamount where an island once stood, not a reef that might once have broken the surface. Nothing. The ocean floor at those coordinates was completely unremarkable, flat, featureless, showing no geological evidence that land had ever been there at all. Islands that sink leave traces. Eroded islands leave reefs. Submerged landmasses leave seamounts. Bermeja left nothing, as if it had never existed, or as if whatever removed it was very thorough about leaving no trace behind. The stakes. While the search expeditions were finding nothing, The negotiations were continuing, and without Bermeja, Mexico's exclusive economic zone boundary was drawn in America's favor. Mexico lost access to the oil-rich waters that Bermeja would have unlocked. 22.5 billion barrels. Gone. Not extracted, not shared. Simply outside the boundary. Outside Mexico's legal reach. Because an island that had been on every map for 400 years could not be found, the financial loss to Mexico was incalculable. The political consequences were immediate, and in November 2008, 6 senators from Mexico's governing party stood up in the Mexican Senate and asked a question that changed the nature of this story entirely. What if the island did not disappear naturally? What if someone made it disappear? The 3 theories. 500 years of cartographic history and several official government search expeditions have produced 3 possible explanations. None of them are completely satisfying. All of them leave questions that cannot be answered. The first theory is the simplest. Bermeja never existed. It was a mistake made by one Spanish cartographer in 1539 and then copied by every subsequent cartographer for 4 centuries without anyone actually verifying it. This happened more than you might think in the age of exploration. Cartographers copied from each other. A mistake made once could propagate across decades of maps without a single person ever sailing to the coordinates to check. This is the explanation most academics prefer. It is tidy. It requires no conspiracy. It fits a documented pattern of cartographic error in the age of sail. But it has a problem. Bermeja appeared on maps from multiple completely independent sources across 4 centuries. The probability that dozens of independent mapmakers from different countries across 4 centuries all made the identical error at the identical coordinates without a single one of them ever verifying it is difficult to accept. The second theory is geological. Bermeja existed but was submerged. Rising sea levels, a shift in tectonic plates, coastal erosion. This has happened to other islands. The Lohachara Island in India was permanently submerged in 1996. An island called Esenbe Hanakita Kojima in Japan disappeared completely in 2018. Islands vanish. It is not impossible. But Bermeja's vanishing has a specific problem that the other disappeared islands do not. When scientists scanned the ocean floor at Bermeja's coordinates, they found nothing. Not a seamount, not a reef, not a shallow underwater plateau, not any geological feature that would suggest land was ever there. Islands that sink leave traces on the ocean floor. Bermeja left none. The third theory is the one that 6 Mexican senators raised formally in the Senate in 2008. And it is the one that nobody has been able to completely rule out. What if the island was destroyed? Deliberately. Specifically to eliminate Mexico's territorial claim to the oil-rich waters above it. What if someone, with access to underwater demolition technology and a very strong interest in where Mexico's maritime boundary would be drawn, made the island disappear and made sure nothing was left behind? The senators named no country directly, but they did not need to. The oil rights negotiations were between Mexico and the United States, and the United States had significantly more to gain from Bermeja's absence than from its presence. What the evidence actually shows. Here's what makes this story impossible to resolve cleanly. Every theory has evidence against it. If it was a cartographic error, how do you explain 400 years of independent confirmation from mapmakers who had no contact with each other and no reason to copy the same mistake? If it sank naturally, how do you explain the complete absence of any geological trace on the ocean floor? Islands leave evidence. Bermeja left none. If it was deliberately destroyed, how do you explain the fact that the island stopped appearing on Mexican maps in 1886, decades before oil was discovered in the Gulf? Decades before anyone had a financial motive to make it disappear. What were they protecting in 1886? And here's the detail that nobody has a clean answer for. The last official map to show Bermeja was published in 1941, not 2008, not 1997 when the fishermen went looking and found nothing, which means the island was already gone from official records for more than 60 years before anyone noticed it was gone. 60 years. During which the coordinates sat in the Gulf of Mexico, unvisited, unchecked, and whatever was, or was not, there went completely unexamined. Isla Bermeja does not exist. Or it did exist and something happened to it that left no trace. Or it was made to not exist by someone who understood exactly what was at stake. The Mexican government spent millions searching for it. The sonar found nothing. The satellites found nothing. The research expeditions found nothing. And Mexico lost access to 22.5 billion barrels of oil because an island that appeared on every map for 400 years could not be located when it mattered most. The geographer who has studied this case longer than anyone else calls it the most plausible explanation. A cartographic error replicated and unverified for more than 400 years. But he also says something else. He says that the complete absence of any geological trace at the coordinates is something he cannot fully explain. An error replicated on paper should leave the ocean floor unchanged. And the ocean floor at 22 degrees 33 minutes north, 91 degrees 22 minutes west is unchanged. Perfectly, suspiciously, completely unchanged. There is no island there. There is no evidence an island was ever there. And there is no explanation for why 400 years of independent cartographers from 4 different countries all agreed that there was. The coordinates still exist. You can type them into any navigation system right now. You will find open water, nothing else, just the Gulf of Mexico. Flat and blue and completely silent about what it knows. I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments right now. Do you believe Bermeja was a 400-year cartographic error? Do you believe it sank and left no trace? Or do you believe something else happened? Something that 22.5 billion barrels of oil is more than enough reason for. Subscribe to Dark Archives. Every story we cover has no clean ending. This one has no ending at all.